Welcome back to the Health with Hashimoto's podcast. This is where you will hear true, simple, and sustainable tips so that you can create better health and better health holistically, meaning the whole you. Not holistically, meaning like really woo, but meaning whole. You are a whole person. And today I have a story for you about a patient in the hospital, and his room was cold. So why is that a problem? It's summer, right? Well, the air conditioner was broken, or the thermostat was broken. I'm not quite sure. His room was cold, but he was so cranky. He was complaining about every single thing. The food, complained about it. The nurses complained about it. Any staff complained about them. The bed complained about them. His pain complained about him. Obviously, he was in the hospital for a reason, but he was just cranky and grumpy. Everything was wrong. Well, they got him a new room, and the room was the exact same view. It was the exact same floor. It was the same everything. It was the same staff. It was the same everything except a working thermostat. And guess what? Well, he didn't miraculously get well, but he did stop complaining about every single thing. With the change of his environment came a change in everything. No longer was he angry with the staff and with the nurses. No longer was he complaining about the food. He was a better patient. He was happier. And guess what that means for him? It means faster healing. It actually makes a difference in your healing. So let's turn and talk about Hashimoto's and you. You know that the logo that I have created for my business is a 5-petaled flower, right? It's on the cover art for this podcast. It's on my website. It's everywhere because I look at the whole you, like the whole flower, as created by 5 different parts: body, mind, spirit, diet, environment. And Hashimoto's is impacted by all 5 of those. There are different triggers and root causes in each of those areas. So when you're looking at Hashimoto's, there are things that you can do physically, mentally, spiritually, dietary, and environmentally. There are actual things that you can do for each one of those aspects for Hashimoto's. So, for your health. And then there are also things that Hashimoto's impacts. For example, when you have Hashimoto's, you are going to feel more exhausted physically and mentally. A lot of people also feel just beaten down, which is on that spiritual level. There's so many different things. When you have Hashimoto's, your weight changes or your metabolism can change, which impacts your diet. It impacts your environment. How many people with Hashimoto's do you know who are feeling cold all the time or who have temperature intolerance? You go outside when it's hot and they can't tolerate that either. Hashimoto's is impacted by all 5 parts of the whole you. Hashimoto's also impacts all 5 parts of the whole you. Now, when you hear that, you can either be overwhelmed, oh my goodness, I need to address so many things, or you can look at it as a beautiful gift. He just changed one thing, the temperature of his room, and everything else transformed. With the change in his environment, he was able to go from fighting the staff on everything to now becoming a part of his care team. You can do the same thing. You can find one simple thing and it impacts the whole. When you make a change in any one of those petals, it does impact the other petals. Everything is related to everything. And that is such a gift because we can do small and simple things. And like I say over and over, if it's not true, it doesn't matter. And if it's not simple, it doesn't matter, because if it's not simple, then it's not sustainable. And if it's not sustainable, then you've just wasted your time and your effort because it's not going to continue. So everything that I talk to you about has to be both true and simple, so it's sustainable, because we're not in this game of health. We're not in this life just to try things and waste our time and money and effort, right? We want to make changes so that we actually feel better. So think of a time when you listened to a band or an orchestra, whether you went to a concert, like a professional concert, or a high school or elementary school concert. If you think about it, you're listening to the music as a whole, right? Yes, you hear different individual instruments and, sometimes they're highlighted. You have a solo or a certain section of the orchestra is playing and they really stand out. But as a whole, you're listening to the entire orchestra. Now, what happens if somebody hits a wrong note? You notice it, right? One wrong note jolts you out of this experience of listening to this amazing musical piece to all of a sudden be like, whoa, that was wrong. Right? And obviously this is going to be dependent on if you're listening to an elementary school band, it's going to be a bit different than listening to a professional orchestra. But either way, when you hear a wrong note, it really stands out and it ruins that little piece of music. And, ruins, of course, they're still humans. We love them, but it changed the experience, right? It's the same thing for your health. You are working as a whole: body, mind, spirit, diet, environment. And when you're working as a whole and something has a wrong note, something isn't working, all of a sudden, your Hashimoto's is acting up. Well, you're going to notice it. It's going to detract from your overall health. It's going to be very noticeable, and you're going to have to invest a lot of time and effort and energy into figuring out that one thing. For example, if you have listened to the episodes this past winter when I was talking about my flare, I had to spend so much energy and focus dealing with that flare. And then the flare itself was causing increased stress, which was causing more of a flare. Like, it was this cycle. It took a lot to get out of it. And I had to address it as a whole. It might have started from one trigger, just one little piece of the whole, but it grew so big that it was affecting everything. And then I had to use more resources in order to get things calmed down again and get out of that flare. And when you're looking for advice and resources on Hashimoto's, on thyroid stuff online, a lot of what you'll find, at least a lot of what I have found, are diet tips. And of course, that's part of the whole. We absolutely need to address diet. And when you're trying to lose weight, of course, you're looking at diet and exercise. But that's only part of the whole. They are not the whole picture. The whole you is comprised of your body, mind, spirit, diet, environment, and each one of those petals needs to be healthy and strong. So I don't just work with diet and exercise. In fact, you might even be surprised to find out that when people book a Hashimoto's health session with me, or when you are enrolling in the Holistic Hashimoto's course, I don't start with diet and exercise with either of those, because I find that everybody's talking about that. So it's something that you've probably been looking at for quite a while. We're going to start with other things that can make a difference faster, because they're little things like the thermostat in that patient's room. We changed the room to a working thermostat. No longer was he freezing cold, and then he wasn't cranky. He wasn't fighting every single step of the way. Instead, he was able to relax and become like a member of the team, or at least participate or not resist his own healing and everything that was being done to help him. So how can you apply that? It's a great question. When you sign up for a Hashimoto's health session, I have a wheel tool. I'm sure you've seen them online. You score yourself in different areas, 1 through 5, and then you connect all of those different dots, and you see how much of a circle you have. From that, together, you and I are going to look at it and say, okay, this is an area that clearly is, lacking for you, or it's weaker than the rest. It needs some attention. If we focus on this, how are we going to be able to affect all of the other things? And then you're going to be able to make small, simple changes that are sustainable so that you can experience better overall health. And maybe, your your little dot that is the lowest number, maybe that's not where we start because you're like, that one is too hard right now. And so we move to a different dot because you don't have to start with one particular thing. You can start with anything and they all make a difference. For that patient, we changed the temperature of his room. It clearly was not related to why he was in the hospital. The temperature of his room was not related to, his healing process, at least not traditionally how you'd think about it. It was just one thing and it was simple to change. So what is it going to be for you that is simple to change? If you aren't sure, then book a Hashimoto's health session so we can work together and figure out your next step. You'll find the link to schedule down in the show notes, so you can just click. And also, of course, it's on my website. Next week, we are going to talk about holistic weight loss solutions because I know that so many people with Hashimoto's struggle with their weight because when you have thyroid problems, hypothyroid, which typically Hashimoto's gives you hypothyroid. That hypothyroid often leads to a slower metabolism, which leads to increased weight and a difficulty dropping that weight. So we're going to talk about solutions that you can implement that go with those 5 petals, except guess what? We're not going to talk about diet and exercise. I'm going to give you solutions that address the other aspects of the whole you. We are going to talk about holistic weight loss solutions next week, and we are not going to talk about diet. You don't want to miss that one. And you don't want to miss out on the opportunity to have a Hashimoto's health session. Drop down below in the show notes and click that link to schedule your appointment right now. And if you're waiting, I heard somebody say today, there's never going to be a good season. There's always something going on, whether it's summer and you're in vacation mode or it's back to school mode, or, there's a something coming up or the holidays are coming up. There is always something going on. So don't delay your healing process and figuring out your next right step, waiting for the perfect time, because there is never going to be a perfect time. We just have to take action and work on our healing as best we can. We're all doing the best that we can each day, and I want to help you so that you can do even better, but in a simple and sustainable fashion. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Please be sure to discuss any concerns and plans with your trusted healthcare professional.